name is Elizabeth Nichols with Lizard Nickel Photography, and I wanted to do this little video to show you how I edit a wedding start to finish. So I just finished the video and I wanted to do a little intro to kind of explain what it is. This is not a video going into detail about how I edited each photo. It's more about how I organize that quantity of photos and kind of dive into it. And then of course how I save them and back them up and all that. It does show a little bit of editing, so I hope you enjoy that, but mostly this is kind of about how I use Lightroom and Photoshop and just my process with it all. So it's a little bit long, but I hope you like it and enjoy. So I thought it might be good to kind of walk through how I edit a wedding, so this will be a series of videos probably, but I thought for anyone kind of starting out in wedding photography or anyone who's just curious, you can kind of watch my process with this. This past weekend I shot my baby sister's wedding, which was like the coolest experience ever. So I've got all the photos now and I'm going to import them into Lightroom. And I'm just adding them. Sometimes I change them to a DNG file, but I kind of stopped doing that. So they're all going to be NEF files from my Nikon camera and my second shooter. Lori Faber also shoots Nikon, so that's super helpful. So that's going to take quite a while to import. We spent kind of the weekend in a cabin in Arkansas for her wedding, and so we have a whole bunch of extra photos. So I have way more photos than I'm used to having at a wedding, but it'll be fine. We also did kind of, you can see in here, a little mini maternity session with one of Hallie's new sisters-in-law, so that'll be fun. And we'll kind of get this started. You'll see that the first thing I do after I import is I separate all the photos into some special categories that I'll show you to kind of break it up, otherwise it feels really overwhelming. We'll go through and we'll cut out the ones that we know we don't want to begin with, and just start to make subcategories and just kind of start taking bites out of the giant animal of photos that we have. Yeah, and that'll be the process. I'll pause the recording while these finish importing. Okay, so these have now finished importing, and we're going to start separating them out into categories. I usually try to get wedding photos. I aim for 6 weeks. I usually end up at about 8 weeks for editing a whole wedding. Hopefully this will take about the same amount of time. I do have quite a bit more than I normally have, but we'll see. My first priority is going to be editing this mini maternity session, if you want to call it that, because she's already like 36 weeks pregnant, so she's going to pop pretty soon, and I want to get these photos back before the baby is born. And I also want to get on Instagram as quickly as I can some previews for the wedding couple. I love to have a little preview, like the day after their wedding, and I did do that while I was in the cabin. I think I posted like 2 or 3 preview shots on Instagram and Facebook for them to see, to kind of tide them over through their honeymoon, and now I want to get up some more previews and do it, so we will start doing that. I should also talk about how I back up my photos. I shoot with a Nikon D610 and a D750, and the reason that I shoot with those above some other competing models is they have 2 memory card slots. So as I'm shooting, I'm backing up to a second memory card, and then as soon as I'm done with the wedding, I import everything. Like if it's an out-of-town wedding like this one was, I imported everything actually onto my travel laptop, which I keep pretty empty of files, so it imports quickly. So by the time I leave the wedding, I now have the photos in 3 spots on 2 memory cards and my laptop. And then when I get home, I move them from the laptop to some type of cloud storage, which I'm kind of working on right now because I'm switching over. I have 3 external hard drives that I can move them to, so they're always in 3 places, even before I delete them off of my camera. Okay, I'm going to keep showing you some stuff concerning how I organize my photos when I first import them. I think both of my kids are napping, so we will see if that continues. The video might get interrupted, but we'll see. Life of a working stay-at-home mom. That's okay. Okay, So we've imported all the photos. We're going to have a whole bunch of extras. Right now they're sorted by capture time. I have whoever second shoots with me, in this case it was Lori Faber. I have my second shooter at the very beginning of the day sync the clock on their camera to the clocks on my cameras, so that hopefully it runs perfectly smoothly and we don't get photos in a weird order. Thank goodness I remembered to do it on this day, otherwise we would be in a pickle. So a lot of these photos are actually taken the day before the wedding. Hallie and I, my sister, we went around and scouted some spots, and I was also just kind of taking pictures of the family hanging out, and then we did this cool little maternity session for Hallie's new sister-in-law, Cassie and Jeremy. So the first thing I'm going to do is organize them into categories. Lightroom comes with some categories already in place, so I like to make my own. So I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to walk you through like literally everything I do, and I'm going to create a smart collection. This is going to be called Stills, matching all of the following rules. I'm going to put the rating is greater than or equal to 1 star. No, we want it to be is 1 star. So anything that I have 1 star is going to go into the stills category. Create that, and we're going to do this for a few different things. Some of them I had already gone through at her wedding and marked as 1 star, some of my favorite ones that I was going to do for the preview. So those are already in there. And then we're going to create another smart collection. This will be called Prep, and it will be a 2 rating. We're going to go in here and make a 3 rating called Ceremony. And then we're going to make one more called Reception. Wait, no, I forgot. Group photos first. That's 4 stars. And now we're going to do Reception for 5 stars. What this does is it allows me to kind of break the day down, and I can go through and say, okay, today I'm gonna try to get through all of the still photos, or all of the blah blah blah. So we've made these smart collections, and now I can go through and categorize all the photos. This isn't really a typical wedding, so I actually started shooting the day before instead of the morning of. And so I'm going to lump all the pictures that I took the day before in with the stills, which is the first thing that I typically shoot, just to kind of separate it out. So these are all from the day before. I'm going to select all of them and give them a 1-star rating. And then these, anything where the girls are hanging out or the boys are hanging out, I'm going to put into the prep category. So even though this is the maid of honor and Hallie reacting when they first see each other, even though that was the day before, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the prep category where the rest of their photos together will be. This is some activities the night before, everybody just hanging out. That'll all be in the stills category simply because it happened chronologically the day before. Okay, so this is where, these are all sorted by capture time, so that helps. This is where the wedding day actually started. Lori and I were up super early, we were up super late, and then we were up super early, getting some just photos, the morning of, sunrise photos, who was up early and all that. So this is where I'm going to kind of start separating things out. So if it's a shot, basically if it's a shot without people, it's a still, and if it's a shot with people, it's prep, but kind of things switch around sometimes. So these are all just pictures and a video of the sunrise. That's all going to go in still. And here's baby Abe with his daddy. These are going to be in prep. People hanging out, that's all going to be prep. That goes in 2. Here's some landscapes, that'll be in 1. Stills. Here's some more people. Here's some stills. This is where when me and Lori separate and we go in different parts of the cabin, we're going to have to go back and forth quite a bit because she may be shooting stills, I may be shooting prep, and so on. Thank goodness the capture time. It helps me sort everything. Okay, so here's some shots that Lori got of just the dress. I'm going to put those all in stills. And here's the girls starting their makeup. Here's Hallie and Reagan having their morning coffee together. It's the maid of honor and the bride. People, people, people. This is all going to be prep. People, 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 people. Hanging out, activities, all goes in prep. Here's some decor. It's going to be in 1. Hallie's toeless sock, which was funny too. Chandeliers is going to be a 1 for stills, and here's more people hanging out. If I need to zoom in on one, I can. This is all going to be just people hanging out though. And you can be, if you miss one, it's not a big deal because you can go back and switch it real easily. This is all prep. And here's just the dress shots. That's all going to be in 1. People hanging out 2. Everything's going to be in kind of 1 or 2 for the first half of the day. This is all just stuff. Here's me shooting. I always ask my second shooter to get some photos of me doing my thing because I like them. I think they're special. These are all 1. And here's this moment where Hallie gave Reagan a letter and a gift, so this will all be in 2. So you kind of get the idea, and I am going to skip forward to when I do something different so you don't have to watch me tediously going through each photo. So I will see you in a bit when all of them have been categorized. Okay, so I have finished categorizing all the photos, and I posted a couple more previews to Instagram. I also finished Cassie's maternity photos, so they're no longer in here, and sent those off to her. And then one thing I did do that I didn't show you was I went through these categories that we created, the star categories, and I color-coded them. So, for instance, when we go to prep, we'll see that they're sorted by label color. And what this did was this separated within the prep the girls getting ready, and down here we have the guys getting ready. And then we have the rehearsal that actually happened the day of the wedding. And then the ones that aren't marked are prep from earliest in the day, from the morning of the wedding. So categorizing like that keeps them obviously just lumped in together in certain places. So when I give the photos to the bride, they'll actually be in these 5 folders: stills, prep, ceremony, groups, reception. So if she goes, because she has so many wedding photos, so if she goes to her wedding photos, she's like, where's that picture of me and Reagan having coffee? She knows, oh, that was in my group photos, of everyone hanging out during the day, and so she'll go back and be able to find them. Same with family photos and couples photos, that's all in group photo category. So if she knows it was like a formal portrait of a group, she can go to the group folder and find it. So it just makes it kind of easier for me to get through the editing, and also easier for the client to handle that quantity of photos. Okay, so it's been a while since I've actually come back here to record. The last time I was here, I think I had color-coded everything and showed you how I categorized it all. Since then, Hallie and Austin have actually had their hometown reception in Oklahoma City. So in preparation for that, she asked me to make a little slideshow, and I had to do it really quickly, so I didn't have time to record it. But basically, I went through and picked some favorite photos, about 115 or so, and edited those and put them in a slideshow. So as we go through this now and edit, you may see some that are already edited, and that in a random order, and that's because they were some of my favorites that made it into the slideshow. Okay, but getting back down to it, everything is now categorized and color-coded, and usually what I do is I just start with the stills and go pretty much in chronological order. Because this wedding was a little bit different, being a family wedding, and so I was there for a couple days, and also I had a really good second shooter. I have way more photos than I'm used to starting with, so because of that, I'm actually going to look in here and see how many photos are in each category, and sometimes I'll start with the one that has the most amount of photos just to make me feel like I got through a big chunk of it. Also, my favorite thing to edit is couple photos and still photos, like just the dress, just the rings. And since those are my favorite, I usually tend to reward myself with editing those after I get through some photos that are a little more challenging. So for this wedding, all that said, I'm going to start with the ceremony photos. One, it has the most amount of photos in it. but also the actual ceremony had a lot of challenging elements since we shot it pretty much in the dark. So I kind of want to get through that. These are all bridals. I kind of want to get through that and make sure that's taken care of. That'll be probably quite a bit of editing. So once I'm through that, I'll feel really good about it, and then I'll reward myself by editing probably the still photos. So we're going to start with the ceremony. Now in this category, I also placed the bridal portraits and the first look photos. The reason I did that is because since I've already done this so many times, I know that when I go and export these photos for the client, I'm going to put them in these categories: 1 stills, 2 prep, 3 ceremony, 4 group, 5 reception. And I want them to tell a story with the order that they're in. Even if it wasn't actually chronological, I want it to feel chronological. So, an example of that. She is going to have all of the still photos, just the ring, just the dress, no people in it. Then all of the prep photos of everyone getting ready. And then right after that, she'll see her bridal photos, which follow a really natural order after getting ready. Then the first look photos. Then the ceremony photos. And then she'll see the couples photos. Now in real life, we did bridal portraits, first look, couple photos, then the ceremony. But because I want it to tell a story, I want to do the couple photos after the ceremony. So these ceremony photos, I have not color-coded because I figured they were in chronological order and I would want to keep them that way. But then I remembered here at the bottom, I've got some bridal photos that we took after the ceremony. So because of that, now I am going to color-code them. I'm going to select all of these bridal photos, label them red. I hit the 6 key on my keyboard to do that. And I'm going to come up here and pick all of these bridal photos and make them red. Let's see. I'm going to make the first look photos yellow. Bridal photos, all red. And here's the first look. These will all be yellow. And then right after the first look, I did a few more bridals. So all of those are yellow. Here's some bridals. They're going to be red. And red. And then all the actual ceremony photos, I'm going to just completely group together. And I'm going to hit the 8 key to make them, is it green or blue next? I think it's green. Yep, so they're all green. So now I will sort by label color, and they'll all pop into their correct place here. And they'll automatically, when I do that, retain capture time, but within their color group. So now they're all sorted so pretty. All right, let's get to editing. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go through this red, color-coded red group of the ceremony category, and that's going to be her bridals. And all I'm going to do instead of editing is go through and mark any of them that I feel like aren't up to par and get rid of them. If they're even slightly out of focus, we don't want those. We don't want them if her eyes are closed or look silly. This one is a repeat of that one. I feel like that she's looking too far away. This one, she doesn't look as happy as I know she was. There we go. She's not going to like that. Okay. Anything that has my second shooter or me shooting, I keep it till the end and I put that in our own little folder just because us photographers like to have photos of doing what we love. So I'm going to continue doing this and I will catch up with you when I'm done filtering out the bridal photos. So I have gone through the red category or subcategory in ceremony, which was her bridals, and I've gotten rid of the repeats or anything that looked silly or anything I know she wouldn't like. So I'm going to start editing them. I got them down to, let's see how many, about 50 photos, which is not bad. So we're going to go through and edit, and probably We'll eventually end up getting rid of a couple of these, but I like to at least give the ones that have a chance. So straighten it, oh, reset, and then straighten it. And I'm just going to pull it in a little bit so we lose slivers. And I'm going to pull this in to lose that light switch and make her be the main focus of the frame. I like that. That's pretty. I'm going to blow out that background a little bit. I'm going to white balance it to cloudy and pull it down just a little bit. I'm going to up the contrast. It doesn't need a whole bunch since the light was so bright. Pull down the blacks just slightly. Give myself a little bit of saturation. And brush on her face to lighten just a little bit so we don't lose any details. And a little bit in her hair here. Pull it up. And make it slightly more blue because I feel like it looks too yellow. Pretty good. And I'm going to do that one black and white too. Just because it's very still and calm. Oh, see, that just, to me, sometimes when you do it black and white, it just makes it more of like a dramatic moment. And because I can still see some of those trees, turn it back to color, I'm going to make sure I totally lose them by brightening the background there. You want to make sure you don't accidentally brush her dress. Good. And then I need to make it real small so I can get in here and do the same thing. Got a little bit there on her sleeve, so I'm going to go through and delete without a feather that and this guy. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and burn or make darker this piece of wood here. Just so it's not distracting. Yep, I like it. Oops, I didn't mean to hit that. Okay, I'm going to soften her cheek just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit with my Skin 72 preset. It helps if you make sound effects, obviously. There we go. I think that that's very pretty. Okay, close the brush. So that's one finished photo. This one's already been edited, and I love it. And I'll show you kind of what I did. I'm pretty sure I did some brushes. Yeah, did a little bit of brushing there, lightened her face, and then up here, I added some contrast. I thought I added color, but I added contrast, which deepens the colors. So, okay. I love that one too, and it looks really good in black and white. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now this one already has one that is edited from the slideshow. So I could just copy and paste that editing over, but I'm going to show you how I did it first. Blueberry warm. I'm pretty sure I used shade. Oh yeah, I used more than shade. Okay, I like my photos to be super warm. So that's what I'm going to do. Contrast. Blacks. I kind of do the same thing on a bunch of them. And then just tweak. Kind of go through the same set of changes and make unique adjustments as I need to. So I feel like this image is pretty bright. I'm going to pull it down. This is actually one of Lori's photos. It's beautiful. She was waiting with Hallie while I was waiting with Austin at the first site. So I pull that down, and I need it to be a little more dramatic. I've just gotten used to basically I know where the highlights on her skin are by looking at the curve, but I can always pull this and drag it. I'm going to pull it down. So sometimes what I like to do, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a blown out highlight on her cheek, but that's okay. Sometimes what I like to do is pull this down a little bit farther than I actually want on the specific point of the photo, and then I brighten the exposure a little bit. The exposure brightens everything. This tone curve lets you be a little more specific with what areas you want to brighten. And of course it does pull the whole photo, but not as drastically as doing the exposure. So I'm going to brush in some color. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of magenta. Right over here, just on the tops of those trees. Very subtle, but very pretty. And a little bit at the bottom. And then I'm going to soften her skin. Why did I hit the brush? Soften her skin. I'm going to use Skin 72 and pull in. Oh, pull in. Put that down. See how it kind of, I think we've talked about this before, but you lose some of the highlights and shadows when you do this, which stinks. There is a way to do this in Photoshop, and you don't lose the highlights and shadows, but it takes a lot longer. So sometimes I like to just do this, and then do a new brush, and add in some of the highlights where they were. I think it works pretty well. Yep, I think that's pretty. So that's without the brush, and this is with it. Just a little bit softer. And I am going to do a new brush. Just give her a little bit more overall brightness on that side of her cheek. And I think that looks pretty good. So, and you want to make sure when you soften, you usually need to soften the neck too to match the skin above, but since the neck is a little bit out of focus, I think that works. I also feel like her blush is kind of standing out more than it should. So I'm going to go in with a new brush and very subtly, slightly desaturate it by like 4. We'll see how that does. Oh, ever so subtle. Maybe by 6. No. Where's my 6? There we go. I could type it in. Okay. So, without the brush, any of those brushes, and with. I think it's better, in my opinion. Okay. That one is finished. Now that I've done that, I can copy what I just did, except the brush. You can copy it, but I'm not going to. And paste it over to the next photo. And this one needs to be a little bit less dark, just because of the positioning of her face. It's pretty good. I'm going to crop it. Sometimes you see a photo and you know exactly what it should be. And this is that for me. I can paste it. It should be about the same. Yep, all I need to do here is straighten it a tiny bit. I already pasted in my editing preferences, and I am going to put a little bit of color up here on the tops of those trees like we did before. That's a little too much. Pull it down. I don't remember how much I did in the other ones. Okay, and I'm going to see, I'm not sure about, oh, I need to lighten her eyes. And I'm not sure about the crop. I might try a couple crops on this one and see what we like. Her eyes got a little bit dark on me there. Don't want any shadows. And that's a little too strong, so I'm going to do about 15, 18. And then I'm going to go in and lighten her eyes a little more. Just where those whites of her eyes are. Usually about 0.4 is where I'm at. I'm going to do a little bit more on this and see if it looks okay. I think it does. Cool. Okay. And this, what was she shooting at? Okay, so she shot this at ISO 800. And this, I know she was in a hurry because they were getting out of the car. We had just been shooting inside, and we were getting out of the car and walking down to the first site, so this was just Lori snapping just a couple quick ones. So I'm sure she wouldn't have shot this on ISO 800, and I'm sure she's not later on when we get down to the first site. But sometimes when you're in a hurry and you don't have time to change all your settings, you gotta just leave it where you're at. So it does make it just a tiny bit noisy, but you know what? It kind of gives it that film look, and it's the good thing about shooting with the kind of cameras we shoot with. It's a tiny bit of noise really doesn't affect it much at all. So, okay, let's see what kind of crops we want here. Just kind of thinking right under that ruffle. Kind of want to lose the knowledge that you're at a parking lot. Whoa, that is unlocked. I wonder if the other one was unlocked. We want to lock it to the original aspect ratio. So I'm going to lose some of that. I have enough shots of her shoes on her later on. I don't need them. I just kind of want to crop it to right under that dress ruffle. I don't want to cut that off. And even bring it down a little closer. Let's see how we like that. Yep, I like that. So since it was shot at ISO 800, you can't crop it in just too much or you're going to start seeing that noise, but I think that this is fine. Because she shot at a 2.8, you get a really good blur behind her, so that noise is not a big deal at all. And obviously some of the stuff was blowing in the wind, which is nice. I think that's pretty. I do think her face looks a little yellow in this white balance, and I do make them very, very warm. This is at 10,000 right there on the temperature, almost 11,000, and that's crazy warm. So it's making her skin tones a little bit off. I'm going to do one new brush. Just make a circle about the size of her face. Do that. It doesn't need to be lighter, but it does need to be slightly more blue. I think that that's pretty good. Let's see if the other ones need it. I don't remember feeling like they did. That doesn't need it. Nope. No, those are good. Okay. Whew. That's a lot of stuff. So this one is real similar to that. So I'm going to copy everything, including the brush. Let's see what that gives us. Yep, I think that's great. Now I'm going to double check my brushes to make sure nothing's on her face. It is a little bit, so I'm going to delete where it's on her. And I'm going to go in and lighten her eyeballs. Just a tiny bit. Yep, I like it. Okay. Cool. I'm not loving her feet just being straight, so but I don't want to crop it exactly the same as I did the last one either. So I'm going to do a pretty typical portrait crop, and oh my goodness, it's still not locked on original. There we go. Oh, okay. Here we go. Pretty classic portrait crop. Right about under the hips. Face, it's going to be centered. I think that's really pretty. Oh, her eyes are blue. Cool. Alright, and I'm going to edit through these and I will get back with you. Okay, so we finished editing all of these in Lightroom, so I'm just going to show you real quick what I do right after that. As soon as I finish a category, I go ahead and export it. And I picked my folder for this. I'm actually going to do an example folder because I actually already did this. I'm just showing you how I did it because I forgot to record it when I did it. So I'm going to go here to desktop, make a new folder just as an example. And I'm going to export these there. I use Adobe RGB color space for my real photos for my printing, sRGB for Instagram and any social media. 300 dpi. I always do all metadata until it's until it's completely finished, and I'll open all of these in Photoshop. So those are going to export real quick while I drink my coffee. Oops, and drop my phone. So as soon as these are done exporting, they're going to open up for me automatically in Photoshop. Perfect. And actually, these particular ones, I don't think I'm going to need to do a lot in Photoshop, but I drag every image through Photoshop just to give myself the opportunity. And that's also where I change any images to black and white, so I can tweak them a little bit easier, only because I'm more used to Photoshop. I can do this in Lightroom, but Photoshop is what I learned first, and so once they've been heavily edited in Lightroom, they get a little light touching in Photoshop. So I have some presets here that I've built myself in Photoshop, and I don't know, this is not going to get anything because that's perfect, but I usually check and see if I want to sun peck them. That's just one of the actions that I built, and I don't think that these are going to need them. It's really just to warm them up, and these are already really warm, so I don't think I need them. So right now I am looking for any tucking or skin blemishes that I need to fix, or changing any to black and white. But I don't think she's going to need any of that, actually, because I did most of my retouching in Lightroom. This one could maybe use a little bit of skin retouching, so I'll just show you real quick. I always duplicate the layer just so I have my original to go back and work on. And I'm going to use my patch tool. There's a whole bunch of tools you can use. This is not actually the quickest one, but I use different tools for different types of blemishes, and this is what's getting used on this one. It works really, really well for any scars. If she had like broken out and she had zits, I would be using the clone, or not clone, let me just see what it's called, the healing brush tool. But her skin is super clear, so she doesn't need it. Okay, that's it. And then I do my save and close preset, delete that. So that's annoying, but it's okay. Okay, this one's going to go to black and white, and I have several black and white presets, and I've gotten to where I can pretty much look at the image and know which preset I'm going to want to use. For this one, it's going to be Lips BW. I can maybe do a video sometime, like showing in depth the differences between those, but that would take forever right now, so we're not going to do that. I'm trying to get these photos done. That's good, that's good. Perfect. Yep, I don't think these need anything. This has gotten to where taking the images through Photoshop really doesn't take me that long anymore because I do so much of my editing in Lightroom, but okay, so that's done. And I'm going to skip ahead here. Okay, so I've skipped around a little more than I would have liked to, but such is life. All of the wedding photos now have been edited in Lightroom and pulled through Photoshop, so they're completely done. And I have them all here still in my Lightroom catalog. They were exported into Photoshop and then into their individual folders. And I'll just show you those real quick. They go here to my external hard drive, and I've got my little Hallie and Austin folder and wedding photos. And so here are the categories. Since it's my sister, she's got an extra category of bloopers and me working photos. So photos of me doing my job and photos of her making hilarious faces that I don't want her to ever forget. If this was a real client, I'm not going to include those photos where they look like an idiot, but it's my sister, so I get to do that. So whenever she gets her photos, they'll be in these folders, so if she's looking for a specific picture, it should be pretty easy for her to find. And they're just numbered chronologically through these folders. So they've all been pulled into Photoshop and then put into these folders here. And so I've pulled them back here into Lightroom only to rename them. So what I can do is just select all, and then library, rename photo. I've actually already done this, but and then I pick my photo, my name. So custom name sequence Wilson, and I do the number. So hit OK, and now they're all renamed in their folders already. So then the next thing to do is do my online gallery. So I use Shootproof. I really think it's the best, and I recently upgraded to unlimited storage so I can back up all of my photos here, including my personal photos. So go to galleries, and I've already done this because if I tried to show you this, it would take forever. So here's her wedding album, and I included some photos from her OKC reception, so that's cool. So she's got a whole bunch, and she's got a few folders because we did a few different shoots with her. So again, that just kind of helps keep it organized. So she can go on here. I'm going to show you the client view. This is what she'll see when she opens her link. This has a password right now because it hasn't been activated yet because she doesn't know that they're done. So she can go in here and just click all photos and look at all the photos she's got, or she can go into the categories and say, oh, I was looking for that picture of me and Reagan. Oh, it's probably in group photos, or the day after our wedding, and here's that, so she's got them all organized. And she has a code to download all the photos, so she can do that herself. And yeah, that's how I edit a wedding. So kind of a long process, but definitely worth it. So I hope y'all enjoyed a little insight into why it takes me so long to get them done. This was more photos than normal, so it took a full 8 weeks. It's been almost 2 months since she got married, but I feel like that's pretty good for all the editing that I do. Yeah, hopefully she feels the same. So if you watched this whole thing, thank you for watching, and I'll try to post some more how-tos pretty soon.